This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
To the finish line. Talking season will officially be over on Saturday. College football week 0 is upon us. NFL roster cut down day is at the end of the week. And boy, do we have news in Cleveland as the Browns have officially named their QB1. We got a fun show on deck for you. Welcome into Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We're holding it down for the next 2 hours. How are you, buddy? How was your weekend?
Pretty good. Went out quite a bit, so there was a lot of
hardy.
Yeah, there was a lot. Well, as you kind of know too, that was kind of our last weekend for the most part. It's a little lighter over the next couple of weeks, but football season's kind of in full swing. It's obviously very busy for you. You're going to start traveling after next week. I'll start working about 7 days a week in 2 weeks from now. So it's kind of the last hurrah. I've also, people leaving and going and whatnot, so kind of celebrating that as well. So it was a busy weekend, and the fantasy people were here. So Friday night we had to come out as well. And a lot of people took advantage of that open bar upstairs. I heard it was a time. It was a lot of fun. So my life has been very tough over the last couple of days, obviously. So, but very glad. And look, it's week 0. That is what I am most excited about. Very much looking forward to this Saturday too. So I feel pretty good. What about you, Stormy? You just stayed in your house all weekend because you got a facial. Yep, and I had a great time. As you know, I bought an espresso machine recently, and that is my whole personality now. I saw you on Saturday. Made my first home espresso martinis, which is going to be probably a new problem for me moving forward. But it was a riveting weekend for me as well. I had a great time, watched a lot of television, watched a lot of preseason football, which is something actually we're going to dive into here as we kick things off. Time for the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right, we're going to dive into some second impressions, JVT. Week 2 of the NFL preseason in the books. Another successful weekend for dogs and under bettors after, 11-4-1 ATS the opening weekend. Dogs followed it up by going 10-5-1 ATS in week 2. Unders currently 20-13 through the first 2 weeks of action as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Look. It's a short sample size. You're not really buying into a lot, but the underdogs you mentioned have done very, very well, especially if you're betting them on a money line perspective. To me, it's really about those line moves too, right? When you're looking at the failure of which those line moves over the first few weeks have not really panned out. So maybe week 3 it'll matter, but it seems, Stormy, that preseason games where you have a lot of changing personnel and lesser players to an extent, they're all great athletes, there's a lot of variance involved in those. And so it's probably hard to gauge what's going to happen in those contests, even with information based on potentially 20 snaps in total.
So you're just still reveling in your Green Bay win, sounds like. I can just feel it emanating from across the desk
that,
here.
For sure. But yeah, to your point, for those who don't remember, I had Green Bay plus 6.5. We talked about that like all week almost. It just doesn't make any sense. But seriously, you're moving lines because, again, what we had. So games with line moves of 2 or more points, 3 and 4 against the spread against the closing line. We can go through the couple examples of them. But the 2 strong ones, Denver opens 3.5, gets up to 6.5, doesn't even come close, gets smoked. How about Chicago going from +2 to -3.5? Philly plus 1.5 to -1.5 doesn't get there either. So I just think, as we have discussed, maybe we'll remember it for next preseason as the preseason's almost over, but basing 4-point line moves off of information that essentially affects 20 plays, maybe we're talking about an opening couple of drives. I just don't get why we've moved so strong, and you've benefited if you've been playing against them.
Yeah, we'll hit lots of news and notes coming out of the NFL preseason weekend, training camps, all of that. Also, as you have already mentioned, college football is here, ladies and gentlemen. This past weekend was officially our last without college football. Feels great to be back. UNC TCU in Dublin going to kick things off early Saturday morning, and then we are nonstop until December. We'll preview plenty of the games coming up this weekend. Josh Nunn of the Action Network is going to join us in hour 2, give us some of his favorite plays. He's also a big FCS guy, so excited to hear his opinion on teams like North Dakota State and Sacramento State who are making the jump, what he thinks they're going to look like in their first year up at the FBS level. And then Aaron Murray, in about 15 minutes, new lead analyst this season for the SEC Saturday night primetime package, former Georgia quarterback. We'll get his thoughts on the SEC and more.
Yep, and we also got about 6 or 7 quarterbacks officially announced for these college teams too, so we could roll through those really quickly. Not a lot of surprises, I think, for the most part. Many names that we were expecting to grab these jobs, especially the high-profile ones, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, all naming guys that we expected to be named.
I do also want to get Aaron's reaction to the Deshaun Wright saga and the NFL players that are eligible to come back to college football, what all of that might mean. But you are most excited today for one segment and one segment only. The fact that our NFL training camp tour continues with mile-high hopes. We're headed out to preview your beloved Denver Broncos today.
I mean, they proved it to me over the weekend. That team's deep, and they're very, very effective. Look, there's a very strong case to be made that this Broncos team is heading south from where they were a season ago. And it's hard. They won 14 games, so it's hard to repeat that. But I'm just really surprised that the masses are willing to ignore some of the very obvious red flags that for any other team you would be down on when you're talking about what the qualities of that Broncos team was last year and how it translates to this year.
Buckle up, Bronco Nation. That segment's going to be coming your way at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, right there at the top of the next hour. But we're going to kick things off. Speaking of buckle up Browns country, because we know now Deshaun Watson has officially been named QB1. We'll start that week 1 game against Jacksonville for Cleveland. Todd Monken making the announcement this morning said after taking in the full body of work, he felt that Deshaun gave them the best chance to move the ball and score points, particularly starting the season on the road. Also made clear that this is not a week-by-week thing. He is the starter. And I think what makes this at least most intriguing right now with the announcement coming today is, of course, all of the behind-the-scenes stuff that came out of the Week 2 preseason game for Cleveland, where Deshaun Watson was obviously booed for the first time in a long time playing back in that stadium, and he didn't particularly like the reception either. Take a listen.
Man, I didn't have no reaction. I think the biggest thing is I think you guys know too, and I think the whole world knows. It has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that. So I think that's it's a disrespectful thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that, and yeah, just move on.
But don't you think, Deshaun, that winning and playing better would eliminate some of that booing?
Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
Does any of that make you regret coming here?
No, I don't regret anything in my life. You know, I think the Lord put me through situations for a reason, so I don't regret anything at all. But, you know, I had different thoughts on how it was going to be, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, sometimes, you know, the tables turn, and I'm patient enough because I'm a child of God to, you know, wait for that time to change. So I'm not tripping on it.
That commentary took a lot of turns. He did, by the way, this morning after being named the starter, apologize on the podium, said the emotions got the better of him. Also said, though, he thought he was going to get a better response. I mean, he was just looking for sympathy, and then he didn't get it, and then he apologizes. Sure. But overall, Deshaun Watson being the starting quarterback, what we all assumed would happen prior to this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, the whole situation, we're going to say this dirty word. You ready for this? Get the dump button ready. There's nuance, right? Oh. There's nuance to these sort of things. In a vacuum, if a professional athlete were to have their Achilles torn in the stadium in which they play, not everybody, a lot of people were cheering for it, you would probably hold some pretty hard feelings for those people. And you're still playing in the same uniform, playing in the same area. And so when you get booed after a bad performance, your emotions are high. It would make some sense that resentment would then manifest itself in comments like that. Having said that, releasing the vacuum, I think Deshaun Watson's kind of a crappy person. So I don't really care that much. And I do think that there is something here where it's like, because of the past, people don't really feel too bad about it. I find it funny when we care about these things, when it's tied into performance, as opposed to maybe just caring about it from a humanity standpoint. But either way, like, there's so much that goes into this whole thing, Stormy, where, look, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is that great. He's clearly played better, I think, than Deshaun Watson in the preseason, if you look at some of the intricate numbers for it at this point right now. Do I think either one of them is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in 2027? Absolutely not. There's no shot. He's probably playing in Texas right now, so we'll see if that's the case. But either way, I think if you're the Browns, this has reached a situation where it's just like, just get rid of him.
I mean, you'd think so.
Yeah.
To me, I personally, I don't get it. I've been saying this for months now, that I don't know what you get out of Deshaun Watson at this point. I don't know. There's no form of actual value to me in what he brings. You know he's not the future. At least with Shedeur Sanders, you know that you have him for cheap and you can just figure out what you want to do if there is something there to potentially build on in the future. But
I think the money doesn't matter, though, right? Because you're paying him anyway.
Sure. I mean, you've paid, what, Deshaun Watson, $10 million per game or something?
Yeah, it's like, well, it's fully guaranteed, whatever it is. So, like, no matter what, it doesn't, like, being cheaper, I think it doesn't really matter that much. Now it's just about getting rid of the headache and, like, just seeing what's going to happen here. But either way, like...
I just feel bad for fans. It's brutal.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, whatever. It's Cleveland. But I think like the whole point is, like Watson last year, or not Watson, Shedeur Sanders. He completed 56% of his passes, threw 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, committed turnover-worthy plays on nearly 6% of his pass attempts, which is an abhorrent amount. Really good and push the ball downfield. It's not going to be that much better in a regular season setting if it's Shedeur versus Watson. I guess it's just more palatable if it's Shedeur that's sucking as opposed to Watson, because Watson's just not like a likable human being.
And he hasn't been good. Like, he makes the comments on the podium saying it's not about performance. But I think, and Todd Monken even said this as well, like, yeah, boos suck, but those boos goes away pretty quickly if you're good at quarterback. Mm-hmm. If you do your job well, that's not going to happen to you.
Don't say anything bad. Don't say bad words.
What?
I was just going to say, last time you brought up a Todd Monken
quote, stop. He doesn't like a certain type of football that may or may not need it to. We don't need to talk about it. Since joining the Browns in March of 2022, Deshaun Watson played 19 games due to suspension or injury, right? Limited as 19 games, which is why I had mentioned in terms of the money that he has been paid to this point. He has made $10 million per game for what has the production been? A player who is 9-10 in those games, 19 touchdowns, 12 picks, 11 fumbles, 6 lost, and had ownership just last year say that contract and that signing was a swing and a miss.
Let's put it this way, last couple of seconds. This is generally going to be good for them. They want to lose games. They want to be near the top of the draft. This is setting up for them perfectly so that next year they have a stud rookie quarterback to lead a roster that is relatively talented.
So then it's good news Alex Wright had a season-ending injury as well. Like, I say that obviously sarcastically. Unfortunate there, ruptured Achilles. Sad moment there. We'll be right back. More Money Moves coming up today.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're only 15 minutes into the show today, and I'm pretty sure I've already said how excited I am for college football about 10 times over or under. Like, this is the time. I'm ready.
I mean, you are ready, but there's a CFP Eliminator game in our very city this weekend, and it's like pulling teeth with you to get you out there.
Okay, JVT wants me to go to the Memphis UNLV game really bad, but I just want to watch it from home. Sorry that I want commentary, and when I'm going to be traveling every single week for college football moving forward, would like to just sit on my butt and watch it all day. Is that okay with you?
Let's ask somebody who maybe knows. Aaron Murray's with us, former Georgia quarterback, analyst as well for ESPN. Aaron, if you had the opportunity to go watch two teams that might be duking it out late in the season for a CFP spot, if you could see it live, would you go and watch that? Of course, we're referencing Memphis and UNLV this Saturday night.
Oh, 100%, man. Let's go see some little Dan Mullen action. UNLV, great year ago. Still a little surprised my guy Dan didn't get an opportunity with all the openings in the SEC this past offseason. So, yeah, I mean, listen, we've been waiting months and months and months for football to be back, games that mean something. So, if I had an opportunity, if someone wants to fly me out to Ireland to go watch that game out there, I'll jump on board and go watch some college football.
You know, something tells me Dublin might be a little bit more fun than being out here for that game. Just saying. No?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, football. Football is football. And listen, we woke up this morning. I know I haven't been outside much today. I've been just actually starting to prepare for my first game on week 1, the Florida Gators. So I've been just taking some notes. So, but I did walk the dog this morning, and it was a nice, mid-60s. And finally, maybe teasing me a little bit that college football and football season is here with the weather. So hopefully we continue to trend in that direction. But Yeah, I mean, listen, it's football, and to your point, two teams that have opportunities to possibly a playoff team when it's all said and done from the group of five ranking. So, got to take a chance to go see what they look like.
Aaron Murray, ESPN college football analyst, former Georgia QB, all-time SEC passing leader, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Congrats to you, by the way, new analyst as well on the SEC Saturday night primetime package for SEC Network. You mentioned that first game that you're going to have at Florida, the first game of the John Sumrall era out there in Gainesville in the swamp. Should be a raucous environment for sure. What do you think about that hire for Florida and what they could potentially go on to do this season?
Yeah, I love the hire. I had the opportunity actually to cover Tulane last year when they hosted Duke. And for those who remember, Darian Mensah was the quarterback for Tulane. The previous season, he leaves, goes to Duke. So a lot of energy and excitement about Tulane and Mensah back and, all that. And, so I got to sit down with him and his coaching staff, obviously on Friday when we got there to New Orleans. And, got to know him a little bit and just walked away. I was like, man, this guy is an absolute stud. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to move on to a Power 4 school eventually, and obviously led Tulane to a tremendous season a year ago, and now has a job. And I know there's some hesitations of do we want to go and get another Group of 5 coach? I'm speaking of Florida here after what happened with Billy Napier, but I tell you what, man, this guy is organized. He's got a lot of energy. Obviously shown that he can coach at a high level. I mean, go back to even what he did at Troy. Taking a team that I think a few seasons in a row of losing to 24-3 in 2 years. So the guy knows how to coach. The guy knows how to win. And I love his offensive coordinator and Buster Faulkner. I think Buster is an absolute stud. I just got to know him when he was at Georgia, then seeing what he's done at Georgia Tech over the past couple seasons, seeing what he's done with their quarterback a year ago and just transforming him into one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And obviously we saw what he did in the preseason in the NFL as well. And then knowing that Aaron Philo played well when he was able to get in there and play during his time at Georgia Tech. So you got a great coordinator, you got a great head coach, great two coordinators on both sides of the football, and you got a lot of skill. That's the one thing that should excite a lot of Florida fans is you got a quarterback who has experience in the offense. You have Jaden Ball back at running back. You have some incredible depth and talent at the receiving position. So it should be a really fun year to watch Florida football. So I'm excited to kind of see what they look like week one versus FAU as John Sumrall gets things started off and then hopefully can get a trend of good coaching for a while. I mean, I think he's the fifth coach for Florida since 2014. So just trying to obviously build some consistency there in Gainesville.
Aaron, new coaches are kind of the theme in the SEC. There's quite a few teams that have some new regimes. The other, Auburn, it's kind of a similar situation, except Byron Brown's awesome, and you bring in a lot of that staff that was over at USF. How do you think that translates for the Tigers this year?
Yeah, it's funny enough. I got them. I get promoted to this new role as lead analyst for the SEC Network, and my first 2 weeks are I'm going to Gainesville, and the second week I'm going to Auburn. So they just like, let's send the Georgia Bulldogs, the two of his biggest rival fan bases, to get his new broadcasting career off and running. So excited to get there. And I've called a lot of games in Gainesville and in Auburn, and they're always very gracious. And make sure they always talk about some of the games that I played against them during my time at Georgia. But yeah, I really, really like Golish. I remember covering him when he was at Tennessee. You want to talk about just a really good human. I love sitting down with him, talking ball. He's so good with the media. He's open about everything. He'll give you anything you need to make sure that we can do our job come Saturday afternoon, when we cover his team. So, he had a tremendous year, at USF and obviously to bring over Brown and, a plethora of their talented receivers to come over. But it's going to be a new world, man, playing in the SEC, and I know they had success last year going against some of the big dogs across the country. But, to be able to do that week in and week out, to do that against a 9-game SEC schedule. And not saying that they can't do it. I definitely think they can. You look at Auburn a year ago, a lot of very close football games. And I think they're going to be better coached this year. They have a tremendous defensive coordinator. They should be significantly better on the offense side of the football. So when you look at the SEC, and a lot of people are like, okay, who's a team that may surprise you this year? I'm fortunate. I think I get to cover two of them in my first two games this season. I think Florida's a team that could take a massive step in the right direction. We just talked about their talent. I think there's an upgrade at the coaching position. And I think Auburn's the same thing. I think you're going to get better players. I think you're going to get better coaching. And I don't know if I can say, like, okay, those guys are or teams that may fight to be in Atlanta or the playoffs. It's too early to see and kind of predict that, especially with how talented the SEC could be this year. But those two teams should be more competitive and I think win significantly more games. So I'm excited for Alex and what he's bringing in. I think Brown is a tremendous quarterback. May not love necessarily his throwing motion, but he's a competitor. He gets the job done, obviously, with his arm, and his legs are tremendous. He's a big body guy that can win you some third down and shorts and whatnot. So it should be a really good year there in Jordan-Hare.
Auburn win total sitting at 6.5, Florida 7.5 as well. Let's go to the top of the conference, though, because your Dogs, preseason AP, number 3 overall team in the country. They're favored to three-peat in the SEC, plus 260. Do you think that they can do it again? Can they get over the hump in the playoff? How do you see Georgia and maybe the top of the conference shaking out this year?
Yeah, I definitely think they do. You look at Georgia and just the roster overall, and this is kind of the roster that I love. It's now a more veteran defense. They had a lot of guys, young guys, newbies a year ago. Those guys now have a year of experience with Schumann and obviously Kirby being a defensive guy. It's going to be a very talented back end with elite safety and cornerback play. I think the linebackers are very good with Chris Cole and company. The defensive line is going to be the somewhat of a question, and I think they're very talented. But obviously the big thing is get after the quarterback. 20 sacks is not enough. That is unacceptable for the amount of talent that's on that defense. They got to get after the quarterback. They got to create more havoc plays. But overall, I think you're talking about one of the most talented defenses in the conference. Then you flip it over to the other side. Gunner, I thought from pretty much that Tennessee game until right before Georgia Tech was playing as good as anyone in the country when it comes to the quarterback. Throwing the football, running the football, definitely some areas of growth needed to be had. But he's very good at that position, and those legs are deadly. I think the running backs are going to be top-notch. The tight end should be one of the premier groups inside the SEC. I think this offensive line could be one of the best O-lines in the SEC as well. And, there's guys at the receiving position, and I love the guy they got from Georgia Tech, and they got a bunch of other 4- and 5-star guys there. So those guys are, you may not know them now, but I think that's going to be Bobo's goal and his opportunity to hopefully get those guys some experience early, get some confidence, and get that group off and running throughout the season. But overall, from top to bottom, this is as good of a roster as Kirby's had these past few years. So, they should be favored to win the SEC and make it to the playoffs. And from there, you got to get that little drought, that 2-year drought off their back and go out there and win a playoff game. But you look at the SEC from the top. I mean, Texas's roster is obviously elite, but, can they beat Georgia? That's going to be the big question mark. Can they finally break through? I think LSU is going to be very good. I've always been a big fan of Lane Kiffin. I love what he's doing, besides maybe going out there and getting NFL guys, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point during this conversation. But Sam Levitt's a really good quarterback. I actually had an opportunity to cover him a year ago. Like the things that he does. Obviously, love what Lane Kiffin does offensively. They got a tremendous defensive coordinator in Baker that just continues to improve that side of the football. Alabama's going to be, a good football team. It's kind of crazy when I list teams that have a chance to win a national championship, during this preseason. I've kind of left Alabama out of it just, as we kind of figure out what the offensive line looks like. Obviously, Keelan is just named the starting quarterback. Young quarterback, very talented. He's going to have about 5 games to kind of get his feet wet, but, he should be pretty darn good when it's all said and done. So, plenty of good teams, A&M, et cetera.
Aaron, we're up against the break, but thank you so much for the breakdown. We appreciate it more than you know.
Appreciate you guys.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Game-used apparel to autographs and trading cards from your favorite University of Hawaii student athletes. Rainbow Authentics has you covered. Plus, they have custom gear so you can look your best each and every game day. Capture the moment, own a piece of history, support Hawaii athletics, rooted in community and built on excellence. Rainbow Athletics empowers student athletes and coaches, gives back locally, and proudly celebrates its island roots. Shop now at rainbowauthentics.com and bring home a real piece of the action. Love being here in Vegas, the ninth island, as many say as well, and obviously our VSiN crew is going to be out there in Hawaii this weekend. I believe we're going to have Tim Murray, part of the beautiful Tim Murray and Matt Youmans duo that's making the trip on tomorrow.
Which one of them's beautiful?
Both of them. It's a beautiful duo, the two of them. But yeah, excited to have Tim on. We're going to talk through a lot of college football, get his thoughts on how that first game is going to play out with Hawaii and Stanford. We may or may not have a guest with a pick on that very game a little bit later on today as well.
I am distracted.
Bye.
Go to VSiN.com. You can check it out. We have announced about half of the field for the Pro Football Invitational coming up on Friday night. So I was reading through all the invitees for these Friday football showdowns.
You might as well hit them.
Well, we might as well, but I closed the link, so.
As you say, you're distracted and you're reading this article.
By closing,
you
because you started
X'd out
talking.
of it.
Go to VSiN.com and check it out yourself.
Okay, well, maybe we can bring that up a little bit later on. Do want to thank Aaron Murray, by the way, for stopping by last segment, talk a little SEC. You can catch him on the SEC Primetime Crew. That game one going to be out there in Florida against Florida Atlantic. I was just looking up that spread, 27.5 for that week one contest. But because we had college football in the brain, one of the questions I wanted to ask Aaron that we just ran out of time against that kind of hard out on the break was the news that we got overnight and into this morning that tight end Daquan Wright, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, seems fitting, right, that we have all the Browns conversation with Deshaun Watson being named QB1 earlier, to this kind of natural segue that he's on the verge now of becoming the first of potentially several players who are currently in NFL training camps that are going to play in college football. Reportedly, if he clears waivers, he's got an agreement in place to follow Lane Kiffin to LSU, former Ole Miss Rebel. Not going to get into all the details of how we got here. It's a long, convoluted explanation, but we are here now. What's your feeling on all of it?
I mean, if you can do it, do it. That's what I say. Why not? Let's see it. Let's see if Lane Kiffin can put this together. It's part of now, well, it has been, but this was the best transfer portal class in the country. And now it just gets a little bit stronger here, I guess, technically, right? Because he is in the portal and he transfers in. But either way, like, you can complain all you want about what's going on, the legalities of it. The sport is broken. If you can do it, if you're a coach, if you're a fan of that program, you want them to do it. And these coaches are doing it. So good on Lane. We'll see how good this is going to be, because I have questions about how quickly you can put something like this together. But he seems to at least be collecting a lot of guys that were, of course, formerly with him. Levitt's going to be the biggest wild card for them. But a lot of guys that were at Ole Miss are on this roster.
It's all some craziness. I do agree with the overall Dan Lanning sentiment that a lot of people I know heard that sound coming out of the weekend from him, saying his biggest issue with it, at least right now, is the fact that somebody could be coming back and taking away a roster spot from somebody that was kind of getting their opportunity in college football, a younger guy that's on the team, that kind of thing.
That's not going to happen, though.
But I'll say this is a one-off thing, right? Like these lawsuits and everything for the 5 years and 5 years of school, 5 years of eligibility.
Yeah.
These lawsuits are for this year and next year. Like beyond this isn't going to happen anymore. This is a one-time deal, supposedly. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
And I did the reason why I disagree with Lanning is look, realistically, first off, you're bringing in transfers every single summer, so it's not like, when you're talking about roster attrition for the guys that are losing spots, you're talking about the last guy on the roster that's not really going to do anything for you at all. So,
well, I don't think it's from a production standpoint. It's just you're supposed to be done with college football, and someone was getting an opportunity.
Yeah, it would get an opportunity, but if that guy was not good enough, any coach would do it. You never feel bad about cutting a guy, right? Ever. But now it's like, it's just as terrible for the kid. Like, stop. Like, let's stop playing the game.
I do have a couple more fun-loving opinions on this that we'll get to and call me crazy, but a little bit later on. But let's get back to the NFL here, because you can give me better perspective on this. Over the weekend.
You must be in a dark place.
Over the weekend, when we start seeing the initial reports from Las Vegas Raiders beat writers that Ashton Genty has been injured.
You mean that he
I thought old boy was on death watch with the way that some of these reports were.
I thought he was critically injured.
The whole team takes a moment after he goes down, this whole thing, and then we find out he's got a sprained ankle.
Yeah. Frankly, I think it's kind of an embarrassing moment for media out here. Not all of them, but some of them. It did seem the tone of that was dramatic, to say the least. But look, sprained ankle, generally good news, because it's not going to be a long-term thing. And in this system, obviously you want a healthy running back, especially one that you invested a 6th overall pick in. But I'm with you in the sense of it seemed a little bit more dramatic. But here's the thing. The thing that has kind of emerged quietly for the Raiders preseason, one, they're probably going to stink. But two, is that very quietly, a rookie running back, Mike Washington Jr., has played very well. And so if Genty's going to miss some time, it looks like the Raiders have set themselves up here, at the least with the emergence of Washington in the preseason. 15 attempts, 119 yards, just under 8 yards per carry, 6 missed tackles forced, according to Pro Football Focus, 2 runs of 10 or more yards, and 7.07 yards per attempt after contact. Now, again, a lot of that stems from one big run, but the whole point here is that Washington has done a really good job in this offense. was kind of a talented kid anyway. The thoughts were just maybe some other things that would hold him back in his career. So if he can hit on all of the aspects of what his his skill set is, I think you're in a pretty good spot. So I was going to ask you, I mean, look, this timeline is unclear for Genty, but if Washington hits ground running, I mean, what are we talking about? Here's 40-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year in a offense and a scheme that is set up to get the most out of your running game. If he is by a default now the lead guy in this backfield, got to be pretty live to do this.
So I like the number, obviously, for sure, especially considering some of the injuries that we've already seen creeping up this year in the Offensive Rookie of the Year market. Fernando Mendoza being your leader in the clubhouse at quarterback, but when is he even going to start a football game? I understand all of that. My question, I guess, would be, are we sure the offensive line is going to be better? Because that's what would hold me back with anything run game related.
Sure. I don't think the offensive line is going to be great, but I think that the Kubiak-Shanahan kind of scheme can offset a relatively poor offensive line with the way that it is
to mask it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think from a pass pro perspective, you're really kind of worried about how this is going to look. But again, too, remember, the bar is not like super low, but the bar is lower for Offensive Rookie of the Year than some of these, right? We're not talking MVP. We're not talking Offensive Player of the Year. We're just talking about being the best rookie. And so I think that is something that can be achieved here for Washington if he's going to be the lead guy. Now, one of the answer rebuttals, too, would be, well, when Genty comes back, would he lose out on the gig? And you do wonder, I brought this up to Kendall Valenzuela last week when she was with us, and I was like, yeah, you sure he's the lead guy? And Genty is.
She was pretty staunch in that, yes. The answer
and that was obviously
yes.
Prior injury. My whole thing was just like, Washington's pretty good, and Kubiak did go with like kind of a two-back split when he was out there in Seattle. And so now if Washington is awesome and Genty does come back, would you really force Genty back in? Or if this kid's killing it in a scheme that really gets the most out of rushing attacks, is this going to be one where we'll roll Genty back slowly and he's still going to put together enough to win Offensive Rookie of the Year? Because I still think he can win Offensive Rookie of the Year while also splitting time in that backfield. Because, again, what was the theme of last week, Stormy? Think about the attrition that has hit the Offensive Rookie of the Year market. How many of these guys have been injured, dinged up, missing time? And so there is, I think, some upward mobility here, and he could be the beneficiary of it.
While we're on this market, are you surprised at all that we haven't seen Carnell Tate's odds lengthen a little bit based on what we've seen from the Titans in the preseason? Because preseason games I know don't matter, but we've seen this be pretty reactionary in general from what we've seen so far, yet Tate is just sitting right there at 6-1, tied for second on the board.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really played that well. We've seen it slip from like 550 to 6-1, so I guess maybe there has been something there. But I'm just in general with you, just like, look, man, like, he hasn't really played well. Maybe it's just we have to stay there because everybody else is dinged up and hurt. We just don't know what's going to happen with a bunch of these guys. I will say, who finally is starting to slip? Did you notice this? Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
Fernando Mendoza is finally starting to lengthen out a little bit. He's at 7-1 now, which I would argue still a little short. And a lot of people, I think you brought this up on Friday, speaking of freaking out around the Raiders, a lot of people were really freaking out. Like Florio had like a whole diatribe about, Fernando Mendoza could be the starting quarterback week 1. He's not going to be the starting quarterback week 1. And so I think the market's finally kind of coming around to that potential and lengthening him out a little bit here. But, man, I wouldn't say no to Washington at all, still sitting out there at 40-1. Because I'll put it this way. Jordan Tyson's at 40-1. Mike Washington's at 40-1.
Tyson should be longer.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
How many weeks is he going to miss? We already know that.
Right. So the guy that's got a hamstring injury has the same probability as a guy who might be in line to potentially grab a starting gig because of an injury in front of him.
Yeah. Also, Dejon Stribling, and I did want to put this out there because I know a lot of people, myself included, thought that it was Dejon Stribling. So, just want to make sure we get that right. He's down to 11-1 now. Every single day, this number is getting shorter.
I'd still say 11 is...
Still, as long as he's double digits, you're like, I'm still interested in it, given the state of that wide receiver room. Where Mike Evans, I guess, leaves practice again. They keep on saying that it's maintenance related,
sure.
and that, if you feel a little bit uncomfortable, why risk it? Just come out. But I'm not loving that already, obviously, here. Ricky Pearsall's done for the whole season already. We know that. So, fortunately, he did sign Debo to step in. But that's a room that there's plenty of opportunity, especially with the early connection that you've seen from he and Brock Purdy and just the way that he's even performed in preseason games. Again, I know you can't put much stock in what you've seen from the preseason games, but it seems like a pretty good situation that he's been put in at this point. George Kittle, by the way, we did get an update on him on Sunday as well, activated from the PUP list as he looks to return from that Achilles injury. All signs are pointing forward to him ideally being out there for the Australia game. Even though we haven't seen any Nick Bosa, a lot of the conversation around him and his tendonitis is that he'll be ready for week 1 as well. And as we get going here a little bit later on in the show, I do want to ask you about this Christian McCaffrey situation. Because if it was all planned the way that he said it was, why wasn't that communicated? So we'll get into that and more when we return. More Money Moves after this.
On your tinfoil hats.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The whole world gone crazy.
For Call Me Crazy, but...
Good Overreaction Monday. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves. Let's start on the PGA Tour, where over the weekend, Wyndham Clark holds on to win the BMW Championship despite a late surge from Rory McIlroy. But where I want to get into is pre-flop tournament favorite Scottie Scheffler, who was a very prohibitive favorite, around 3-1, following up that dominant performance at the FedEx St. Jude. Call me crazy, but it would have been nice to know old boy was dealing with hand, foot, and mouth disease at some point. Told reporters Sunday he had blisters on his throat, hands, and feet. Quote, the blisters on the hands were probably the most challenging because it was so painful to grip the club to start the week. I was prioritizing rest, so I wasn't able to work out the way I want to, practice the way I want to, or even warm up for the rounds how I do. I really tried my best to battle. Now, with that information not available, I saw a lot of people, after the rough round one, seeing some really nice numbers on Scottie Scheffler to come back, maybe get in the top 10, top 5. No one is playing that if you know homeboy has blisters on his hands and said how painful it was every single shot he made. This is insanity.
How does a human adult male contract hand, foot, and mouth disease?
It's much more rare, obviously. Right? But he's got 2 little kids.
I mean, yeah, but I've never had it.
Okay, so it's because something's happened to you, it can't happen to anyone.
Correct.
You're a ridiculous person.
By the way, I mean, you really expect that they're going to be truthful about this? They never are.
But so this is one of those sports, though, where they don't have to have any of the reported injury information necessarily like they do in the NFL or other places.
Right?
Correct. Well, so all of this to say, and I know this has been going around a lot over the weekend, but it would be nice, to get this type of information if we can. Even in college football, we're seeing conferences put out those availability reports at the end of the week.
At least like a illness, you know what I mean? Scottie Scheffler.
Just something.
Illness, you don't have to put hand, foot, and mouth. Scottie Scheffler's a gross human. You don't have to put that, but...
Also, I don't understand the telling you after the fact stuff in general. Like, either don't tell us or why are you making excuses afterwards?
Oh, you think that's an excuse?
Sounds like it.
You should have gritted through it.
T12 would have been good for anybody, not for you, Scotty, okay? I expect better. You got anything or you want me to keep going?
I got one.
Okay.
So call me crazy, but sometimes believing in superstitions does work. Over the weekend, had a really good run at the blackjack table, Stormy. Had a very good run. Now, I learned how to play baccarat earlier that day, thanks to your husband. Mm-hmm. And we decided to transfer over after winning some money to the blackjack table. It did not go well for Chris. Did not go well that
Yep, Chris. I heard. Trust me, I heard.
But he left in a cool and calm manner and was not angry in any way, shape, or form when he left the table. And after he left, us, including Wyatt, producer here, and some other friends, went on a pretty decent run. So Chris decided to come back and check in on the table, immediately lose to, I think, a 6-card 21 the second he shows up, and all of us turn around and told him, get the hell out of here, because the second he came back, things went south. And to his credit, the second that 6-hand 21 happened, he turned around and was like, all right, I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. And we continued to go on a pretty good run there. So it was a very good day at the blackjack table, but we believed that your husband was bad juju.
He is.
And we kicked him out.
He's in a bad run right now. Like, even when you guys were all planning on going out and everything, I was like, all right, Chris, you know how it's gone the last couple times. And he was given the I'm due factor.
Because he wanted to do the slot machine thing. I was like, no, I want to have some fun. I want to play some blackjack. I don't want to just sit there and press the button the whole time. Let's go. Let's get some juice flowing.
There was no flashy time to be had. Yeah. Let's get into, that's what we call the machines, by the way. Yeah. I feel like I needed to make sure that I elaborated on that. I want to go back to college football here for a couple things.
I'm not flashing Stormy's husband.
Starting with this one, can we give Arian Carter maybe a little bit of a pass now for everything that's been going on with these players that are coming back from the NFL? Because does it not feel like we're losing the plot a little bit, where there is a guy like Carter who's suspended 2 games for having a $427 flight paid for by his agent that he reimbursed the agent for, by the way, to work out at a pre-draft facility before coming back to school for his final year of eligibility. Meanwhile, guys like Daquan White, who we were talking about a little bit earlier, has been paid, $50,000 as an undrafted free agent. You got some other players who are part of those Louisiana plaintiff cases that Jack Pyburn, for example, who's the primary plaintiff in that case, $115K as a UDFA. Wyatt Williams, another plaintiff, paid $100K by the Cardinals. Like, these guys were paid big money, but oh boy, reimbursed his agent for a $400 flight and is suspended 2 games.
I mean, I think this is what's wrong with college football at this point right now. You can't be shelling out $400 for a flight. It's absolutely insanity. People say that the sport is broken. I say it's broken when guys like Aaron Carter try to ruin it.
That's actually a great segue, too. Despite all of the chaos and mayhem and all of the commentary right now that college football is broken and it's a mess and nobody wants this, college football is going to be just fine come Saturday. Call me crazy, but you all are going to be watching. It'll be the best ratings that we've ever seen.
You're going to call that shot?
Yeah.
Okay. The best ratings we have ever seen for all of the games?
No, not for all of the games.
Okay, well, which one?
No, I'm saying when all is said and done, we get to the national championship at the end of the year. We're going to see all of the records once again, like we have consistently each and every year, despite all of the commentary about the sport being a disaster.
Yeah, football's fun. It's going to be great. We have a CFP game this weekend as well. We have a good matchup that we'll get into with North Dakota State, Jacksonville State. Obviously, the Ireland game is going to be a ton of fun. No, everybody's going to watch. Who cares? That's all this is. Just everybody complains about everything. It's going to get fixed. You brought up a good point earlier. This is kind of a one-off thing with all these guys and that 5 for 5 and class 2022 nonsense. And then once we get past this, we'll figure it out.
Brendan Sorsby, we've moved on. The 5 for 5 will move on. Once we have games, nobody's going to care anymore. It's that simple. Okay.
You want a little one?
Sure.
Really quickly before we move on? I'll just say this. Call me crazy, but the Artie Moreno regime needs to end very, very quickly in Anaheim. I see this quote over the weekend. Logan O'Hoppe on his time with the Angels. Quote, whether on the field or off it, I didn't like it. I didn't like myself. The 4 years with the Angels were the most painful 4 years of my baseball life.
Ooh, not great. Speaking of billionaire businessmen, there's some interesting news coming out around my team today, which I'm sure you have seen.
You talk about been making jokes about it all day.
So call me crazy, but can billionaire businessmen just stop being gross and weird? Just please.
Just stop being randy.
That's all I ask. For anybody who hasn't seen it, 49ers principal owner Jed York was reportedly arrested in a trailer park yesterday and booked in jail for allegedly arranging to pay $140 for sex in Ohio at a popular prostitution website. So that's as if the on-field stuff hasn't been rough enough for my team. Now let's just throw this into the bucket.
This is why self-love is important. You got to talk.
Why are you the way that you are?
Talking about.
There are much easier and better solutions to your problem, Jed. That's all I'm going to say.
Money moves at vsin.com. Have you ever been that down bad?
The charge, by the way,
you just couldn't handle it.
Was amended, I guess, to charge of possessing criminal tools, whatever that means. He has since been released on time served and $5,000 bail. No further details have been made available at this point.
So speaking of your team, what's going on with Christian McCaffrey? All
right, I want to play this sound real quickly if we can. Christian McCaffrey back in pads yesterday practicing for the first time in a couple weeks, and he hit the podium afterwards discussing what has been the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously when you don't practice, the way the media works now is firestorm. But, this was kind of part of the plan from the jump was to ramp up pretty big, get 9-10 practices in, kind of come back down and then ramp back up so we're fresh for the duration. So, our staff's done a great job of kind of coming up with specific plans. And, again, I feel great. So, feel fresh and it's good to be back out there.
Okay, I love CMC more than anybody, but why are we blaming the media for the way things spiraled? A, given his history, and B, if this was the plan, why wasn't it communicated? How many times has Kyle Shanahan been in front of a microphone and had the opportunity to put this to bed, but you as a team continued to call it tightness?
You already said it. I mean, that's so stupid. That is so dumb to pull the media. Like you said, if it was the plan, then communicate the plan to the people who are paid to deliver what you say to the people who are fans of your team. It's really not that hard.
Like all of that crisis conversation could have been averted.
Well, here's the thing. He's also
avoided.
He's lying. Christian McCaffrey is lying. I will say that right now. That was not part of the plan. You were dealing with something. You got hurt. You were missing time. That's fine. But he is outright lying there. I will say it. Like to say it was part of the plan, but then also blame the communication system that we have in place. Like, if that was the plan, there was no harm in revealing that plan, which leads me to believe it was not part of the plan.
And then there's the other layer, too, of the speculation about the contract after we saw Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs get paid. So whichever way you want to take it, none of this media, opinion, speculation, question mark, none of this would have happened if you would have laid out what the plan is. Because I think, given his injury history, everyone would understand that, right? Everyone would understand just, hey, he is our bell cow, every play, every guy back. If you want to slow roll the beginning of the season, the preseason, not to waste any of those touches, we all get it. Everyone would understand it. Makes no sense to me.
Well, a little bit of breaking news before you read that. Not big, but Kayshon Boutte getting traded to the Texans for safety Jalen Reed in 2028 7th-round pick.
We'll have tons of NFL discussion, obviously, coming up in hour 2 as well. But with college football and week 0 upon us, do want to remind you one more time, you don't want to bet college football season blind. There's so much change from last year to now. Our VSiN College Football Betting Guide has you covered, and you get it free with VSiN Pro. Previews of all 138 FBS teams, preseason top 50, power ratings, best bets from your favorite VSiN show hosts and personalities. But again, you need to be a VSiN Pro subscriber. You can come join us on that full-time basis at vsin.com/subscribe. Start for as little as $9.99 or get 50% off a full annual subscription. We'll be right back, kicking off hour 2 next on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.